Entering Kenmore. Doors will open on the left.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to part 6 of our MLB 2026 season preview, going through all of the divisions, teams we like, teams we don't like, all of the sorts. My name is Zach Coe, and I am joined, as always, by two of my co-hosts on two separate podcasts. That is, of course, David Azer, my co-host on the Entering Kenmore podcast, and George Gabra from the Ramble On podcast. Guys, we made it. We are now less than 48 hours away from opening day, and we are in the last part of this season preview, talking about me and David's stomping grounds, that is the AL East.
I'm looking forward to getting into this division. Obviously very familiar with it from entering Kenmore and being a Red Sox fan my entire life. It's an interesting division. I think it's always a dogfight, and that remains the same this year. I'm looking forward to getting into these teams.
Same with me. It's a very competitive division, very fun division. And if you count a team that we're going to discuss here in a little bit, the New York Yankees and the Giants, less than 24 hours from that game. So we are right on the precipice here of some baseball that's going to count, and I can't wait.
So we'll kick things off here on the AL East, talking about the projected worst team. But again, we talked about the Guardians, we talked about the Brewers and Devil Magic, and I would say that the OG Devil Magic is the Tampa Bay Rays. They are coming in at plus 2,500 to win the AL East. Their win total is set at 76.5, and they are plus 340 to make the playoffs. What are your guys' thoughts on the Rays?
The Rays' Devil Magic ran out a couple years ago. They've been in a little bit of baseball purgatory since then, and this offseason they did what they always do, and that is clear salary, trade off expiring contracts in their veterans, and bring in young guys. I don't think it's going to be the year for the Rays, especially in the AL East, which is such a gauntlet. But some bright spots in this lineup, obviously Junior Caminero burst onto the scene last year, really came out of nowhere and hit, I think, over 40 bombs. So I'm looking for him to do that again. It helped that they played last season in the New York Yankees spring training facility. Obviously, the Trop was messed up from the hurricane. I know they're getting back there this year, so I am curious if that affects a little bit of the power numbers we saw from the Rays last season, but I think Caminero is going to be great for the Rays once again. Chandler Simpson was a bit more of a mixed bag last season. He stole a lot of bags, and he's going to continue to do that, but I wonder if the bat takes any sort of step forward this year. The big guy for me is Shane McClanahan, who hasn't pitched since, I believe, 2023, and now has had, I believe, a full healthy spring training. I saw him pitch against the Red Sox, and he looked pretty solid. If McClanahan can return to form at all, he can take this Rays pitching staff to a different level, but even still, behind him, the rest of the pitching staff is pretty lackluster. The lineup outside of Caminero, Chandler Simpson, Yandy Diaz isn't really anything to write home about, so I'm not expecting a whole lot from this team. I have them finishing in last.
David, I'm right there with you. I do not have this team performing all that well, but again, it's a very competitive division. And Zach, you just said 76.5 for the win total. So they're not going to be in the bottom of the basement in terms of the league. But when you play in a division like the AL East, it's going to be tough to compete, especially when you don't spend any money. And the Rays, they are one of those teams that don't spend any money and they just find a way to win baseball games every single year. The last couple of years, it has not worked out that way. They have not made the playoffs in a couple of seasons. And it doesn't look like they're going to make it this year. They just don't have the talent that they usually had. But still, this is a team that is a small market team that knows how to develop guys, and you never know what they can do. They can always surprise you. I am happy that they're going to be back at the Trop this year. It was disappointing last year when, even though the Trop is a complete dump, I have never been there. Zach, I know you have been there. I've never been personally, but from watching on television a lot of games there and from what I've heard, it is a dump, but it's better than playing at a AAA ballpark. So it is an upgrade. I'm glad they're going to be back at the Trop here this year. So that'll be exciting. But yeah, it's just not too much to get excited about. I honestly forgot, as big of a baseball fan as I am, I forgot that Shane McClanahan existed. I saw that he was putting up some good numbers in spring training, and he hasn't pitched in over 2 years, so it's going to be good to see him back. And when he was on, man, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. So he could really, if he can stay healthy, that's going to be huge for this Tampa Bay Rays team. And much like the Brewers that we talked about yesterday, they just develop pitching, and it seems whoever they throw out there just is able to eat innings very well and have low ERAs and not give up very many runs and limit the damage. So I'm expecting the same sort of thing from this Tampa Bay Rays pitching staff, even though it doesn't have a bunch of star-studded names. And the offense is just it's very bland. The Rays have had seasons where they develop guys. I mean, those old teams with Carl Crawford and B.J. Upton and Evan Longoria, those were some fun teams to watch. This offense is not near that what it used to be. I mean, that was 15 years ago. But you do have some exciting names, and I think Junior Caminero is the big name here to look out for, one of the top prospects in baseball just a little bit ago. And he has the ability and the talent to win an MVP this year. I mean, the kid is unbelievable. We saw what he did last year. He does it all on the baseball field. So very excited for him to see what he can do. Yandy Diaz is always very solid there in that lineup. And Cedric Mullins coming over in free agency after a long stint with the rival Baltimore Orioles, then being traded to the Mets at the deadline. Really underperformed for the Mets. So we will see if he can step it back up here and get back to playing a lot better than I think he's capable of playing. I mean, I know he's made the All-Star team before in his career, so I think Mullins is going to be a key part of this team. It's certainly a team that could go to the playoffs. I'm just not expecting it.
Yeah, it's weird because when you think of the Rays, and obviously they did what they always do in the offseason. They cleaned house. They moved on from Shane Baz for a pretty good prospect haul from those Orioles that we'll get to next. But usually they have a great young crop of arms to come in and take the reins from those guys. They really don't have that anymore. They have Brody Hopkins, who we should see in the big leagues at some point this year, about to be 24 years old. Fangraphs has him as the 64th overall prospect, their number 2 in the organization. But when you look at their rotations, Drew Rasmussen, who I think has emerged as one of the more underrated arms in the entire sport. But then you have Joe Boyle, who doesn't know where the ball's going at any given moment. He's projected for a 4.85 walks per 9 this year. Steven Matz, who has been a reliever for the last couple years of his career, coming over in free agency from the Red Sox. Nick Martinez at 36 years old, and then Shane McClanahan, who hasn't pitched in 2 years. So it's not the Rays of years past where it's like, okay, we're going to trade James Shields, but we have Shane McClanahan waiting in the wings. I know that's obviously not the exact path that they went, but it's not necessarily the pitching pipeline that it once was. One guy for me that I'm looking to take a step forward is Carson Williams, their top shortstop prospect, top prospect overall. Obviously, he's a glove-first guy. He was the minor league fielder of the year a couple years ago, and he gets a cup of coffee last year at age 22, and struggled really mightily. It was a 41.5 strikeout percentage. He hit just 172 with a 573 OPS. Nailed it. Zach versus math. Take that one, math. Just a 54 WRC plus. So can he take a step forward in his age 23 season and kind of become that top prospect that the Rays were hoping he would become? Obviously, like I said, glove first, but the signs were encouraging in spring training. It was only a 23.5% strikeout rate. He hit 281 with OPS over 700. The WRC plus was still just a 77, so still lagging quite a bit behind league average there, but I am interested to see what kind of second year that Williams can give to them. On Junior Caminero, I faded him in a bet slip that I had. I got a $10 free bet on Prize Picks. I placed it, and one of the things I took was Junior Caminero under home runs, because his splits last year when he wasn't playing in Steinbrenner Field, which is obviously the spring training home of the Yankees, built to the same dimensions as, you guessed it, Yankee Stadium, the splits were really glaring. At Steinbrenner, it was a .313 batting average with a .954 OPS and 22 home runs. On the road, it dipped down to a .218 batting average and a .743 OPS. He did hit one more home run on the road than he did at home, but again, those are pretty substantial drop-offs in all the other stats. After the WBC, I feel like a real asshole for taking that under, and I have already chalked that bet slip. Again, $15 free play, who gives a shit, but this guy is an absolute star. He is just a stud of all studs. And watching him in the WBC, and I think I was very quick to write him off as a fraud, as I'm one to do, but he was such a blast to watch in the WBC. He's hitting home runs, pimping the shit out of him, pounding his chest at the dugout. Like, that was a blast. And he really shined on one of the biggest stages in the sport in a stadium that isn't a Mickey Mouse ballpark. So again, like I said, I chalked that one up as a loss, but he is pretty much the lone bright spot right now for the Rays. Yandy Diaz is a nice piece at DH. Jonathan Aranda, another nice piece, playing first base for them, but this is all they have, really, Junior Caminero. So we'll see where their season goes. I don't have high hopes for them. The sports books don't have high hopes for them because they are a distant fourth place to win this AL East. So we'll see what it has in store for the Rays. I never write off Rays Devil Magics, but I think this year it might be officially dead.
Yeah, I think it's been dead for a couple of years now, to be honest with you. Just one more thing I want to touch on. The back end of this bullpen is also really solid. It was a bit of a puzzling move that they acquired Griffin Jacks at the trade deadline. Like, that seems like more of a win now move, a move that puts you over the top if you need help in your bullpen. And he went to the Rays, who really had nothing to play for at that point. Maybe they were still in the mix, and that's why they went for it. But they also have Garrett Clevenger and I might butcher this name. Edwin, is it Uceta?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so he's on the mend right now, but once he gets back, that's a pretty solid three-headed monster in their bullpen. I don't know if it's going to win them a lot of games, but just something of note. One of the few bright spots for this Rays team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I think we're all on the same page here with Tampa Bay. One other guy that I wanted to mention who I'm excited to watch is Chandler Simpson. I think he's projected for like 50 stolen bases. I mean, the guy is wicked fast, so looking forward to watching him on the base pass, especially because I got him in a couple of fantasy leagues. But he should be fun to watch. And again, this Rays team, if they were in the AL Central, they might have a shot to win that division or at least come in second or third place. But playing in the AL East, it's going to be tough.
All right, so let's move on to a team that was thought to be up next a couple years ago. Speaking of pegging a team as frauds, I was all over this team as a fraud in the 2023 playoffs. Everyone called me a madman. Never wrong, just early. That is, of course, the Baltimore Orioles. They have a young crop of superstar talent in Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, and I really never saw it with them, and obviously they take a pretty massive step back. I like to call him Badly Rutschman. He had an awful year last year behind the plate for the O's, but they seem ready to go now. They seem like they've restocked. We know they were in on a couple of the top arms on the market in Framber Valdez. They were in on Ronher Suarez before he eventually signed with the Red Sox and then stunk up the joint in spring training, but we'll get to him when we get to the Red Sox preview. But it's a team where I still just don't know where the pitching is going to come from. They made some alright additions, but does it really push them over the edge in terms of battling it out in the toughest division in baseball, in my opinion? I just don't see it with the O's, but where are you guys at?
I agree. They're in a weird spot. They obviously made the playoffs the last 2 years before last season, and I believe they didn't win a game in either of those rounds. So that was disappointing for O's fans. Last year was certainly disappointing for O's fans. And now they're in a weird spot because Trevor Rogers took a big step forward last year, lived up to the hype after being acquired from the Marlins, I believe, 2 years ago. And you bring in Shane Baz, who was pretty solid for the Rays, but behind them, it's Kyle Bradish, who also comes with some injury concerns. And then it's Chris Bassett and Zach Eflin, who I would call more aging vets at this point in their career. So I don't know if that rotation has enough. The lineup, I think, is going to be very solid. You saw Samuel Basallo make his debut last season, and I think he's going to make a big impact in year 2, his first full season with the Orioles. I like what they did in bringing in Pete Alonso. Obviously, as a Red Sox fan, I was hoping and praying that he would take his talents to Fenway Park. Didn't end up happening, but I think he's going to have a big season for the O's. It helps that Ryan Mountcastle kind of has taken a step back in a lot of the last couple seasons, so they needed an upgrade at first base. The rest of this lineup is pretty balanced. They bring in Taylor Ward from the Angels. I know we talked about the Angels landing Grayson Rodriguez in that preview video, but the Orioles must think his elbow is mush if they're willing to move on from him, who was once a really highly regarded prospect, for a year of Taylor Ward at this point. So I don't know what to expect from this team. I think the lineup could be one of the better ones in this division, but I don't think they have enough in the rotation or the bullpen to make a deep playoff run or even really make the playoffs in this loaded division.
Yep, once again, David, I'm on the same page as you. It's a very good lineup, very solid lineup. Gunnar Henderson, Taylor Ward, I love that addition. And like you just said, Grayson Rodriguez, his arm might be about to fall off if they were willing to do that trade, because he was once a top prospect. And don't get me wrong, Taylor Ward's a nice player, but Rodriguez, his arm might be done. But I like the addition of Ward. Pete Alonso, great power bat, obviously. I believe he leads the Mets franchise in home runs. Adley Rutschman, we'll see if he can turn it around. Tyler O'Neill, we got to bet him on Thursday to hit a home run. I believe it's been 6 years in a row that he's hit a home run on opening day. So I'll take it this year for the first time, and of course he won't hit one, but we'll see. This is a very good lineup. Samuel Basayo, he's the next one up, and I'm excited to see what he can do. 2 injuries here coming into the season with Jackson Holliday, the former number 1 pick, Ryan Westberg, both on the IL to start the year here. Those are 2 pretty big losses, but even without those guys, this lineup is very, very solid. And this pitching rotation is a bunch of 3s and 4s, in my opinion. They don't really have a number 1 guy that they can hand the ball to in a big game in October, if they even make it that far. Trevor Rogers, who was great his rookie year in Miami and then really struggled, went over to Baltimore in the, I believe it was the, I'm totally blanking who they traded for with that
Stowers.
Stowers, that's right. And he was really good for Baltimore last year. So if he can do that again, that's going to be big. But again, it's just Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, Chris Bassett, Zach Eflin, guys that don't really get you super excited. They're not horrible, but again, it's just a bunch of 3s and 4s, I think. So we'll see how they perform. I think the offense is going to have to carry them here a lot this season. And the bullpen is pretty solid. I like Ryan Helsley. Saw him close a lot of games for the Cardinals, and then he got traded to the Mets last year, was the setup man there for the last 2 months of the season. So she should be pretty solid in that closer role. But yeah, it's just nothing really to get too excited about here with the Orioles. The offense is going to be good, but unless some guys in that rotation can step up and be number 1 or number 2 type level guys, it's just in this division, I don't really see it.
Yeah, and it's weird because I feel like, so I was scrolling back on my old Instagram, or not my old Instagram, my current Instagram, and some clips that I had posted about 2 years ago before Garrett Crochet was wearing a Red Sox uniform, and I actually pegged the Orioles as a potential suitor for him because of the loaded farm system they had at the time. Obviously, they have Adley Rutschman, they have Gunnar Henderson, they have Kobe Mayo, Dylan Beavers, Colton Cowser, Samuel Basayo. I mean, this is a team that should have been really set up well for the future, but I feel like they kind of just held on to these guys for far too long. Kobe Mayo has been up for 2 years now and hasn't really seen it all click yet, and a guy who was once a top 10 prospect in the sport has now seen his stock plummet to the point where it would be ridiculous for them to trade him. He's hitting, let's see, it's a 634 OPS in 102 games at the big league level so far. He started to piece it together at least a little bit more last year, and the stats that you see on the back of a baseball card won't necessarily tell the whole story with him, because it was a 217 batting average. It was an OPS of 687, but he kind of got BABIP'd to death last year. It was a 274 BABIP. So running a little bit cold, running a little bit unlucky. Can he finally piece it together at still just 24 years old? And then my pick for American League Rookie of the Year, Sandoval Basayo. They kind of don't have a spot for him right now. He is a catcher by trade, but I think a lot of people, myself included, expected him to wind up at first base long term. Obviously, you go out and you sign Pete Alonso, that kind of changes things. So he's slotted in as their DH right now, but it's something that we saw with Alex Cora talking about Roman Anthony and the Red Sox. He's not going to be a 21-year-old DH. And I don't think that's going to be the case for Basayo either. So I think eventually the move is Alonso to DH. We talked about it a lot on Enter and Kenmore in the Red Sox pursuit of Alonso, that he's not a great first baseman. He can pick it, but the range numbers just aren't what they need to be. But Basayo has an absolutely monster bat. Last year I was at the park up in the press box, brag, and they were playing the Orioles, and it was the first week of Basayo's career, and he hit a ball so hard to center field that I literally couldn't believe my eyes how hard he hit this baseball. So, like I said, he's my pick to win. We're going to get to our awards in the final episode, probably like a 10-minute, just little, here are our awards, here are our winners, coming out on Thursday morning. But I don't see it. I echo everything that you guys said. Like, they should have a really good offense, but in this division, it's going to be pitching that wins you games. And can they get the same season out of Trevor Rogers, who, if he pitched a little more, probably would have been, top 4, top 5 in Cy Young voting, and then just kind of piecing it together with a bunch of veterans and Shane Baz, who's a guy I've never really been high on before?
Yeah, I don't really know where this team is headed, because I thought with the new ownership coming in, then they would start really spending money, and you bring in Pete Alonso, obviously, but you really needed help in the rotation. You needed an ace to lead this staff, and it just never came through the door this offseason. Framber Valdez was sitting out there for so long, so much so that the Tigers took him, of all teams, who never really spend money and are already in arbitration disputes with arguably the best pitcher in baseball. So I'm shocked that he went there. I'm shocked that he isn't in an Orioles uniform, to be honest, just because it made all the sense in the world. You really knew what the Orioles needed this offseason. And I don't know if they necessarily needed a Pete Alonso. I think he certainly helps, but really they needed to address the rotation, and they didn't do much of that at all. So until they really improve on that, I don't think it matters how good the lineup is. I just don't think this rotation is sustainable for a full 162 to get you into the playoffs, especially in the AL East, where we have 3 teams projected to finish in front of them.
Yeah, it's going to be all about the pitching and how well that holds up. They're going to be able to win some games simply by their offensive prowess, but if the pitching can't hold up and they're giving up a lot of runs on most nights, it's not going to win. You need pitching in Major League Baseball to win baseball games, especially in October. And this rotation, I don't even think is good enough to get them up to October. So could be wrong. We'll see what happens. Maybe they go out and make a big splash if they're in it at the deadline at the end of July. But as of the way it's constructed right now, it is not the best rotation in baseball. That's for sure.
Moving on to the next team in this division, we're going to save the Red Sox for last. So if we were just simply going by an order of division odds, the Red Sox would be here coming in at plus 325, but we'll bounce to north of the border, the defending AL pennant winners. That is, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays at plus 310 to win this division. I think this is my pick to win the division in the Blue Jays. They're plus 310, and obviously we know there's a Yankees tax on them, so coming in at second, in the second lowest odds to win the Blue Jays, I think that's incredible value there. I mean, this is a team that had the Dodgers on the brink in the World Series, so to see them as not the favorite to come out of the AL East is a bit surprising to me. But what do we think about the defending AL champions? Can they go back-to-back and represent the American League in the World Series?
I don't think they're making it back to the World Series, but I agree with you, Zach. I do have the Blue Jays winning the division once again. They kind of came out of nowhere last year. They finished in last place in 2024, and then obviously won the division and made the World Series last year. And looking at this lineup, I am kind of surprised that more people aren't picking them to win the division. I'm shocked that, actually, I'm not shocked that the Yankees are the favorite, because they always are and they always underperform, but we'll get to them later. I like this lineup a lot. I think it probably is 1 through 9 the best lineup in the American League East. George Springer had a big year last year. I'm not convinced he's going to get to that level of production once again in his age 36 season. But when he's just one piece of this lineup with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who obviously got extended last year, that was a big concern for Blue Jays fans. They got it done mid-season. He had a great season. I expect that to continue. Addison Barger kind of burst onto the scene last year, had a great playoffs as well. Alejandro Kirk is one of the best hitting catchers in baseball, period. And one of the underrated signings of this offseason, I think, is Kazuma Okamoto, obviously coming over from Japan, and was kind of an under the radar signing because you lose out on Bo Bichette to the Mets and they pivot and go with Okamoto instead. And obviously, I don't know a whole lot of what to expect from him this year, but if he can be anything close to Bo Bichette, I think the lineup will be just fine there. The rotation is good. They brought in Dylan Cease, and honestly, I don't know if they even really needed to, but it helps now because they're dealing with a couple injuries heading into opening day. Trey Savage is going to start on the injured list, as well as Shane Bieber and Jose Barrios, but I'm not entirely sure that he's a factor in this rotation anymore just because it's so deep. And even other guys that are healthy right now. Kevin Gausman is a stud. Max Scherzer, he's old, but he proved he can still pitch in the playoffs, so that's pretty deep. They also brought in Cody Ponce. I believe he was in the KBO before and pitched very well there, so it's always a good story when these guys go overseas for a little bit and dominate and then come back, and we'll see how that pans out. But even if Cody Ponce doesn't really live up to expectations, I think this rotation is super deep that they'll be just fine. I don't know why people are not expecting them to repeat as division winners. I see no reason why people shouldn't be picking the Blue Jays to run it back and take the division crown once again.
Yeah, Blue Jays last year, they almost beat the Dodgers. I really wish they beat the Dodgers. They had it one out in the ninth inning, and then Miguel Rojas, of all people, ties it up off Jeff Hoffman, and the Dodgers obviously wind up winning it and going back-to-back. But, yeah, this Blue Jays team should be right in the mix again this year. They've got one of the best teams in the American League. George Springer, he had a couple of down years, and then he really turned it around last year and had a huge year and lived up to that big contract that the Toronto gave him. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's one of the best bats in all of Major League Baseball. I mean, the guy's just so fun to watch. He can hit, and then hit again. Just an awesome player. Was a big fan of his dad growing up, who played for the Angels, obviously. Went and saw him a bunch. So big Vladdy Jr. fan as well. He's an awesome player, and he can certainly win the American League MVP this year. Ernie Clement, he had an awesome postseason. Showed that he can perform on the big stage. So that was really cool to see. And I also agree. Kazuma Okamoto, that was a big signing. I think he's underrated coming over from Japan. I'm excited to see what he's going to do over here in the States. And then the rotation, Kevin Gausman, fantastic. Dylan Cease, I'm not as big of a Cease fan. I don't know. I don't think he can go deep into games from what I saw last year. The year before that, he was fantastic. But that was a bit of an overpay. But when he's one of the best pitchers on the market and you're looking for a starting pitcher, I guess you go out and make that signing. And it is a bummer that Trey Savage is going to start the year on the injured list, coming up from single A, starting last year and pitching in the World Series and almost leading the Toronto Blue Jays to a World Series title. It's just too bad that story couldn't have been capped off with him winning a ring. But this is a really solid team top to bottom. They are not my pick to win the division, but I do see them making the playoffs here once again as a wild card.
George, you mentioned him, but Trey Savage, he first professional season, year before the World Series, he was pitching for the Pirates of East Carolina, the Purple Pirates, and he bursts onto the scene and immediately becomes a major factor of a World Series run for the Blue Jays. He pitched 12 2/3 innings of the World Series for a 2.84 ERA against that Dodgers lineup, where he struck out 17 batters and only walked 4. Obviously, he's going to be starting the season on the injured list, but he's scheduled to start in a minor league game tomorrow. I believe that's still in spring training, so I can't imagine he's too far behind joining this Blue Jays rotation where, like you said, they added Dylan Cease, and I agree with you that Cease doesn't necessarily strike me as a guy that is a true workhorse number one ace when you look at the surface numbers, but we dove into him, another guy, as a potential trade acquisition. Obviously, he was mentioned in Jarren Duran rumors. We talked about him as a potential free agent target for the Red Sox. And when you look under the hood, there's a lot of things to work with. Obviously, the fastball is just absolutely ridiculous. He's projected to have a 1053 K per nine this year, coming off of an 1152 the year prior in 25 with the Padres. So this is one of the really elite strikeout pitchers in the game. It's just going to be about getting him to go deeper into games. Last year was only 168 innings, but in years prior it's been 189, 177, 184. So I think this is a guy capable of being a workhorse, and obviously it makes things a lot easier when you have Kevin Gausman also at the front of that rotation, who is, again, in year 12. Talk about a guy who had a career resurgence, one of the top prospects in the Orioles organization 10 plus years ago. He's in year 12 and never really pieced it together. Got in the Andrew Bailey pitching lab in San Francisco and pieced it all together to be put together a really, really good career.
Yeah, one other guy I wanted to touch on is I don't know what's going on with Anthony Santander, but the fact that the Blue Jays don't even really need him is shocking to me. They signed him to a big deal last year. He barely played, and when he did play, he was bad, and now I'm pretty sure he's hurt, so I don't know if he's going to factor in at all this year. But the back end of this bullpen is a little shaky. Jeff Hoffman, in his first season in Toronto, was a bit of a mixed bag. Obviously had a couple meltdowns in the playoffs. Maybe was the difference, one of the differences in them not coming home with the World Series title last season. But I think this bullpen is in a good spot. They brought in Tyler Rogers, who has the weird release point, the submariner, messes with hitters, messes with me on MLB The Show, so I don't care for that. But you also have Luis Varland, Brendan Little, some other names here that are pretty solid. I think they have enough in the bullpen to get it done. And I don't know. I'm pretty high on this team, and maybe that's just recency bias because they lit the world on fire last year, but I just see no reason really why they can't repeat this year. I don't have them making the World Series, but I do have them making a deep playoff run once again.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as high on Toronto as it sounds like you guys are, but they got a really solid team. We'll see if they respond well. You know, that'll linger with you when you lose a game like that in Game 7 of the World Series. So you had some time off, obviously, with the offseason. If they come out firing on all cylinders, I wouldn't be too concerned with that whatsoever. But this is going to be a good team that I have making the playoffs, not making it back to the World Series, but definitely back playing October baseball once again.
Yeah, just to bridge off of one thing you said, and then we'll move on to the Yankees, David. The addition of Okamoto kind of makes things easier to not know what you have in Anthony Santander, who, like you said, was hurt for the bulk of last year and then also awful when he was playing. So you get Okamoto, you can slot him at third base. Obviously, you lose Bo Bichette, who had been playing shortstop, but that allows you to slide Addison Barger out to the outfield. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Okamoto is just simply a better player than Anthony Santander at this point. Santander obviously has big power. They're different types of players, but Okamoto, I think, was a really underrated addition. I mean, obviously, he was kind of looped together with Munetaka Murakami, who obviously has generational power, potentially. So it was a little bit unfair to him, but he's a guy that just makes contact. He's a professional hitter, and that's all you can really ask for these guys coming over. In the NPB last year, it was an 11.3% strikeout percentage and an 11.3% walk percentage with a 327 batting average. So he puts the ball in play, and when you're talking about replacing Anthony Santander, I think that's a pretty big upgrade.
Yeah, I agree. And also replacing Bo Bichette, I think bringing in a guy who gets on base as well as Okamoto does can help with that a lot. And it's kind of the same sentiment I had with the Mariners in acquiring Brendan Donovan, where they already have their big boppers. They don't need a guy who can hit 30 to 40 homers when you already have Vladdy Jr., George Springer, and others in this lineup. So you can benefit a lot from the on-base percentage with Okamoto.
Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. That is, of course, the music of the New York Yankees,
Your
who are
guys'
no
favorite
longer
team.
Of course, no longer the evil empire. They got us in the playoffs for the first time since 2004 last year in the wild card round, obviously, and their fans acted like they won ring number 28 just because they beat the big bad Red Sox, who couldn't hit their way out of a wet paper bag at the end of the season. But somehow, some way, Vegas is always going to put that Yankees tax on, and they are somehow plus 185 to win the AL East. And this is a team that obviously I hate, but again, never wrong, just early. Mr. Low Leverage, Aaron Judge, disappoints in the World Baseball Classic. He disappoints in the playoffs. He doesn't have what it takes to win a World Series. So to see this team once again towards the top of every single odds to come out of the AL, it's just absolutely ridiculous to me. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the Yankees, specifically you, George, because obviously you're coming in from more neutral perspective than us.
Yeah, I'm trying to remain as objective as possible. It's not going to happen, but they basically did what the Phillies did. They ran it back essentially, and I don't know what about this roster is telling Vegas that they're going to make the World Series and potentially win the World Series in 2026. This core is getting another year older. You re-sign Paul Goldschmidt, who at this point is a shell of his former self. You botched the qualifying offer with Trent Grisham. Now you have him on a $22 million 1-year deal. And I think he overperformed last season. I don't think he's going to be much, if at all, similar to his last year's performance. And then behind them, you have Jose Caballero, Ryan McMahon, Austin Wells, who was pretty solid when he first burst on, but now
known Dominican.
Known Dominican. But he's been somewhat of a mixed bag since coming up, and Anthony Volpe is maybe the worst shortstop I've ever seen in my entire life. The big thing was re-signing Cody Bellinger, who fit very well at Yankee Stadium, kind of had a career resurgence there. I know he was pretty good for the Cubs in the couple years before that as well, but that was a big deal, re-signing Cody Bellinger. But past that, you didn't do much of anything. You lost maybe two of your best bullpen pitchers. I know Devin Williams had a down year for the Yankees, but he's still an elite arm with elite stuff. Obviously goes over to the Mets. Same with Luke Weaver, both of their closer and probably their top setup guy. It does help that they acquired David Bednar at the trade deadline, so they still do have a pretty competent closer there. But the bullpen concerns me a lot. Like, you have Camilo Doval, Tim Hill.
Not the super pen.
Yeah,
not the super pen.
The so-called super pen is not super at all. And I think maybe the Achilles heel of this team, because obviously they play in a sandbox. They're going to hit a ton of homers. Aaron Judge is probably going to win another MVP, but it's a regular season award. It doesn't really matter what you do in the regular season when this core has proven they can't do anything in the playoffs. You make the World Series in 2024, go out with a whimper, and then last year you're throwing a parade for beating the Red Sox in the wild card round, and then you only ended up winning one more game than the Red Sox did in the playoffs. So, I mean, the Yankees fans will continue to try to shove down my throat that this is the best team since sliced bread. Yes, 27 rings, this and that. I just don't see it. I like the rotation a lot. Max Fried looked great in year one. Garrett Cole is coming back from Tommy John surgery at some point, probably closer to the halfway point in this season. I think the rotation is in a great spot, though. Cam Schlittler, I hate him now. Known Bruins fan, please stay away from TD Garden. I don't like you at all.
Yeah,
but
dweeb. You're not from Boston. You're from fucking Walpole.
Yeah, but he shoved it up the Red Sox ass in the winner go home game 3 last season. And I think he's going to take another step forward this year. This rotation is really good. The lineup is also really good, but just something about this team, I'm not sold. I don't have them winning the division. They're going to make the playoffs. They always do, but past that, I'm expecting another fall off from Aaron Judge in the playoffs, and I just don't think this lineup has enough to get through a deep October run.
Yeah. All right. So if you're looking, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just quickly, If you're looking for why they underperform every year, look no further than number 99, because that's why. He's a loser that is destined to lose. Go ahead, George, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too thrilled about this team either. They're the Yankees, so Vegas is going to have them winning the division and the best odds to win the American League, even though they shouldn't be. I think that should be the Seattle Mariners, but they're the Yankees, so that's just the way it goes. I don't love this lineup. I mean, Aaron Judge is obviously phenomenal. He's one of the best players in baseball in the regular season, and he's definitely got a chance to win another MVP and continue his Hall of Fame career. But you guys have said it. When it comes to playing under the lights, and when the lights are shining the brightest and you got to buckle down and win a big game, what does he do? He drops a ball in the fifth inning of Game 5 of the World Series, and then the Dodgers go on to score 5 runs and beat the Yankees in 5 games. He just does not show up when the moment is the biggest. And the regular season's the regular season. I do think the Yankees are going to make the playoffs, but I know Cody Bellinger, he's a very good player, very solid player, but he's certainly not the NL MVP that he won in 2017 level player that he used to be. Trent Grisham's coming off a great season, but I think that was a one-off. I'm not a huge Trent Grisham guy at all. Giancarlo Stanton is 36 years old. He said he has problems eating chips and opening a bag of chips because his back is hurt. I mean, I don't know how he's going to be able to swing a baseball bat, but looks like he's going to be ready to go, so we'll see how that goes. Jazz Chisholm Jr., I've never been a big fan of his. He's a nice, solid player, but anything more than that, I think, is a stretch. So I'm not a huge fan of the lineup. The rotation, Max Fried is one of my favorite pitchers in baseball. He's Mr. Consistency. He goes like 7 innings almost every time he's out there. He's got a chance to win a Cy Young. I think he's that good. So him leading this rotation, especially until Garrett Cole is back in the middle of the season, it's very good for the Yankees to have him up there. Once Cole is back, if he is the same old Garrett Cole, that is a really, really good 1-2 punch that they're going to have at the front of the rotation. And Carlos Rodon, he seems to always be hurt, probably because he is always hurt. But when he is healthy and he is right, he is also a very, very solid pitcher. And to have him as your number 3 or your number 4, that is going to be the strength of this team down the stretch. But I'm not a big fan of the lineup. Once the pitching rotation is healthy and fully going, it's going to be one of the best in baseball. We'll see if they can get healthy, though. That's a big question. And you guys said it too. The bullpen is not great. David Bednar, he had a couple of very nice seasons with the Pittsburgh Pirates, but taken a little bit of a fall off here the last couple of years. I'm not a huge Bednar guy, and just the rest of the bullpen. Camilo Doval, former Giants closer, and then he got sent down to AAA last year, I believe. So he was awful. So not a great bullpen. I don't love the lineup, and the lineup gets even worse once the big games start happening in October. And the Yankees, all they care about is winning World Series, and to win World Series, you need your best player to play well in the biggest moments, and he plays his worst in the biggest moments. And while I do like this team to go to the playoffs, I just don't see them even winning the pennant.
Yeah, if Austin Matthews is Mr. October because he always wilts when the lights are the brightest, Aaron Judge is Mr. April because that's when he thrives the most. I mean, I'm not going to discredit anything he does in the regular season. You said it, George. He's surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's probably the best regular season right-handed bat that we've seen since Manny Ramirez or Albert Pujols, but again, when the lights are the brightest, he is a loser, and he's been a loser for his entire career ever since he tried to walk past the Red Sox clubhouse play in New York on a boombox after winning 1 game in the ALDS in 2018.
He did get his teeth fixed, though. He looks a lot better with
He
that.
did get his teeth fixed, yes. Yeah, that's true. One guy I did want to highlight that we haven't touched on yet is, if you grew up in the Massachusetts area, the worst kid you knew in grade school, that is Ben Rice, the kid that every school had one, where he was like, oh, I'm a Yankees fan just because everyone else is a Red Sox fan. Like, all right, dude, you're a fucking dickhead. Like, go fuck yourself, buddy. Oh, I'm going to get a Yankees hat because we're all Red Sox fans. No, we hate these guys. Like, it's like the tweet that was like, I stood up in church and yelled "fuck the devil" and got thrown out. I thought we hated this guy. like we hate these guys. Like, but Ben Rice, when you look at his baseball savant page, it is a whole lot of red. And he is the laziest pick this year to be a breakout candidate because he already broke out to the tune of an 836 OPS last year and over 500 plate appearances. He hits the absolute crap out of the ball. It seems like the Yankees for several years have been looking for, since Mark Teixeira is really the last consistent first baseman that I could, or I guess Anthony Rizzo was there for a couple of years, but that was definitely at the back end of his career. No offense, George.
No, it was.
But it seems like they have finally found it in Cohasset native 27-year-old Ben Rice. Like I said, he's 97th percentile in hard hit percentage. He barrels up the ball. It's just he rarely swings and misses. He walks a fair amount. Like, this kid looks like he's going to be the total package. So far, he has absolutely killed the Red Sox, which good. It only fuels my hatred. But you guys mentioned it, the rotation. This is going to be a really solid rotation. Max Fried, Carlos Rodon working his way back. Cam Schlittler, who is a grade A tool. He is not from Boston. He is from Walpole, and pretty soon he'll be worrying about the Bruins when they fizzle out in the playoffs once again. I am a little bit higher on the bullpen than you guys seem to be. I think Bednar was pretty solid after coming over from the Pirates last year, and I know that Camilo Duvall did struggle a little bit last year after coming over from the Giants, and obviously you mentioned getting sent down when he was still with the Giants at AAA, but you can't teach the kind of stuff that Duvall has, so I kind of think if there's an organization that can put the pieces together with him after a full offseason in the system, it might be the Yankees, so we'll see how he bounces back. I think if you can get to the Duvall Bednar part of that pen, then you're going to be in good shape in terms of getting a win. But aside from that, like Fernando Cruz, who almost pissed away a game in the wild card series and then pounded his chest like he just got out of a jam that he didn't create himself. Tim Hill, Jake Bird, Ryan Yarborough, who sucks. Ryan Yarborough sucks.
He used to be
I think it's
on
going
the
to be tough
Royals
sledding.
in like 2019.
Yeah, and he was on the Rays in 2021, and I remember
that was the
during
Rays,
that,
and
not
then he
to get
got
off-
traded to Kansas City. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. Okay, my bad.
There was an argument that it was either me and you had or me and David had, not you, David, other David, but in 2021 when we were arguing about the Red Sox in the playoffs, I was like, Ryan Yarborough sucks, they own him. Like, I was very adamant that they were going to beat the Rays in that series, and I was on a complete island with you guys. Turns out I was right on that one, so yeah, Ryan Yarborough's there, but yeah, it all comes down to number 99, and we just saw it in the World Baseball Classic that in the biggest moments he wilts, and he's no Captain America to me. So yeah, I think the Yankees are obviously going to win a ton of games in the regular season. They're going to make the playoffs, but like you guys have said, once the lights get the brightest, that's when the New York Yankees crumble because the Red Sox killed them in 2004.
Yeah, a couple more guys I just want to touch on real quick. Spencer Jones, is he ever going to make his debut? I mean, these guys are talking about Spencer Jones like he's Aaron Judge 2.0, and I haven't seen him at all yet. And they blocked Jason Dominguez by botching, like I said, the qualifying offer with Trent Grisham. So now he's going to start the year in AAA. And
he sucks anyways.
Yeah, I mean, and they also
cool
have
nickname.
Yeah, but they also have George Lombard Jr. I wonder if he factors in at all this year. So there are some solid prospects that are waiting in the wings for the Yankees. I wonder if they turn to them sooner rather than later because the bottom half of this lineup is probably not going to produce much. But yeah, I don't see it. Like I said, I think the Yankees are going to make the playoffs. They do pretty much every season. So I would be a fool not to pick them to make the playoffs again. But I don't see it for them. I don't, until Aaron Judge proves us all wrong. Like, I just don't think they're going to win a World Series with him as the captain.
Yeah, I got the Yankees making the playoffs. I do not, however, have them winning the division. I guess that kind of gives away who my division winner is going to be.
Neither of us have. Wow, the one
Very
impartial
funny.
guy.
But yeah, I just don't see it either. Barry Bonds was another guy who, I mean, most home runs of all time, technically, with 763. And he was a guy who just shrunk in the playoffs. And Aaron Judge is the same type of guy. He can hit a bunch of home runs. He's going to win a bunch of MVPs, but shrinks in the playoffs. And the rotation's very good, but they got a lot of older guys on that staff, and it's just a question of whether or not they can stay healthy. If Rodon and Cole can come back and be what they have been in the past, and they can stay healthy, then I think they can go on a run. But it's just going to come down to health there, and I don't know if I see it. So I got the Yankees making it to the playoffs, but that's about it.
Let's get to your division winner, George. That is, of course, our Boston Red Sox. We're not going to go we'll probably go about as in depth on all these other as we have on all these other teams. But if you were looking for an even more in-depth preview of the Red Sox going into this 2026 season, check out the Entering Kenmore podcast. We are recording tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. It will drop at some point on Wednesday afternoon/night, where we do our full season breakdown, predictions, off-season grades, etc. And of course, the greatest segment in podcasting history, David's Bruins breakdown. Some big Bruins news to discuss there, but let's dive into the Red Sox, who have the third lowest odds to win this division. Obviously losing out on Alex Bregman to the Cubs, but you're hoping Roman Anthony takes a step into superstardom, one that I think we are all, or at least me and David, are definitely expecting him to take. Not a single player projected to hit over 20 home runs in this lineup, according to Zips. We've talked about that on Entering Kenmore as well. I think that's a bunch of hooey, but again, this is another one where I'm interested to hear your thoughts, George, as an impartial viewer. We know you kind of let the cat out of the bag there, spoiled the lead that you have the Sox winning the division, but what do you guys have?
Oh man, oh man. I love the Boston Red Sox. I hate the Boston Red Sox. This was an interesting offseason for them, obviously leaning into pitching and defense in, like we've been talking about on Entering Kenmore, one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in all of baseball. It's an interesting approach. You lose Alex Bregman, you trade Rafael Devers halfway through last season, and you really don't replace either of them with proven commodities, guys who are going to give you 30 plus homers each and every season. So this is what they're rolling with, and Red Sox fans just kind of have to deal with it. This has been the story since 2018. They've been trying to cut costs. They've been trying to continue to stay competitive while working on a budget. And I can't say for sure it's going to work, but I am pretty confident this team can make it back to the playoffs after a few years drought there before 2025. I like the addition of Ranger Suarez. He has not had a good spring training. I I don't want to overreact to spring training, but the fact that it really never got better and he didn't look all that great in the WBC is a little bit of cause for concern, if nothing else. I like the Sonny Gray ad a lot and the Wilson Contreras ad, both coming from the Cardinals. Obviously, I mentioned on the NL Central preview that Chaim Bloom and Craig Breslow appear to be BFFs because they can only trade with each other. But these are win now moves, bringing in two veterans. Sonny Gray, I believe, only has 1 year left. Wilson Contreras has two. Oh, Sonny Gray has two as well?
Yeah, he has an option for, it's like a massive option for next year. I think the Cardinals paid some of it down.
Yes, I believe so. Okay, so regardless, those are more of Band-Aid moves than long-term future solutions to a lot of the problems that have been plaguing the Red Sox. But this rotation has the potential to be one of the best in baseball, obviously headlined by Garrett Crochet, a Cy Young contender, and I think he's going to repeat his first season in Boston. He looked absolutely fantastic, surpassed expectations, and looked like one of the best pitchers in the sport. I think that's going to be a great 1-2 punch with Ranger Suarez as long as he figures it out. And then Sonny Gray, Brian Bayo, and Connolly Early round it out and create a rotation that also has a lot of depth. You have Peyton Tolley still waiting in the wings. Johan Oviedo was acquired over the offseason as well, and apparently is pitching out of the bullpen to start the year, so I don't know what's going to go on with that. But I do like the lineup. It's hard for me to pick this lineup over the Blue Jays because I think the Blue Jays are more balanced. You get into the bottom half of this lineup and it's a bunch of question marks. Caleb Durbin came over from the Brewers. What is he going to be in his first season in Boston? I'm not entirely sure on the offensive side. I think he's going to be great defensively. Marcelo Meyer, same deal. He was a highly regarded prospect. He came into last season, made his debut. He looked okay, a bit shaky at the plate, but very smooth defensively. So if the Red Sox are going to go anywhere, they're going to need these young guys to break out in a big way. Roman Anthony looked like a stud, got hurt towards the end of the season, comes into this 2026 season fully healthy, and now they need him to be like a top 10 player in the sport if they hope to make a deep playoff run here. I can't say that's the right move, relying on a 21-year-old to carry the freight offensively, but that seems like how they're rolling with things. Trevor Story had a great year last year. I'm worried about his health. I'm worried about his defense at shortstop. But a lot of these guys, I think, can take steps forward and propel this team to potentially new heights that we've seen throughout the last couple of years. Aroldis Chapman looked great out of the bullpen. Garrett Whitlock is my favorite player on the team. I love him. He's the best. It wasn't his fault in the World Baseball Classic. But yeah, this team has the pieces to contend and potentially make a deep playoff run. I don't have them winning the pennant this year, but I do have them getting back to the playoffs as a wild card team and potentially making more noise than they did last season.
Well, like I said, this is my pick to win the division. I think it's because of two guys. It's because Garrett Crochet, and you just mentioned him, David, the 21-year-old phenom, Roman Anthony, the Roman Empire, as I call him. Garrett Crochet, in my opinion, it goes 1A, Paul Skeens, 1B, Tariq Skubal, and then 1C, Garrett Crochet. And it really is, it could be 1A, 1A, 1A. Those guys are all just so good. Crochet was absolutely dominant last year. If he stays healthy like he did, he's got the second best odds, I think, to win the AL Cy Young, and he can certainly win it. I know, Ko, you picked him up in our fantasy draft the other night. You were very excited about that. I would have taken him, but I did have the first pick, so went with Shohei Ohtani. But, I mean, Crochet is awesome. He's a number one absolute horse ace that you can throw out there in any game, and you make it to October. You got him out there for game one, or you got him out there for a deciding game 5 or a game 7. You're feeling really good about your chances to win the game. So really love Crochet. The rest of this rotation, I love the signing of Ranger Suarez. He was phenomenal last year for the Philadelphia Phillies. Sonny Gray is about as rock solid as you can get with the Cardinals over the last couple of years. Started out with really well with the A's, and the only place that he didn't really pitch well, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, because there's a lot of noise and a lot of media attention, spotlights on you in New York. That's the one place where didn't pitch too well. Don't think that's going to be a problem here. Love that trade for the Red Sox. And Brian Bayo was really good last year. And Zach, you told me this, I think it was in August when he was having a really nice season. And you were saying it was because he had his kids with him. And when you have that and your mental state's there, it can, I mean, these guys are human beings, and it can make a huge difference. So I like Brian Bayo to be really good again this season. They have the second best rotation in the American League, in my opinion, only behind the Seattle Mariners, and they have a lot of guys who are not as injury prone as some other teams have. Roman Anthony, I mean, I'm a big fan of this guy. Obviously not as big of a fan as you two guys are, but you just see this guy swing and you see the ball come off his bat. You can tell he's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to be an all-star this year. I think he's going to be a perennial MVP candidate, maybe even starting this year. He's fantastic. He's great. Really like what he did in the WBC. So I'm really looking forward to watching him. He's going to have to be big, and I think he is going to be big for this Red Sox lineup. I know Christian Campbell, you guys know more about this than I do, but looks like he's starting in AAA. I know he started last year with the big league club and started off hot and then kind of slowed down. Do you know what his projection is this year?
I would guess that he's only going to be up in the event of an injury, or if he really starts lighting the world on fire in AAA. They're going with he's going to be an outfielder moving forward, and they already have 10 million of those. So yeah. I think it's going to be tough for him to crack this lineup, barring injury.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. But I like Trevor Story, who has been hurt, and I feel bad for the guy because he's just, ever since he signed that free agent deal with the Red Sox, he's just been injury after injury, and he was finally able to stay pretty healthy last year and had a pretty good season. Jarren Duran, he was very impressive last year. I love him. Wilson Contreras, I'm a fan of his now. Obviously, I loved him when he was on the Cubs. And I said I was going to love him no matter what team he went to. Then he signed with the Cardinals, and I said, I don't care. And then he kind of rubbed me the wrong way when he was with the Cardinals. But now that he's not on the Cardinals anymore, he's back with the Red Sox. I think he's going to have a big resurgence here this year. There was a lot of drama with him as the catcher, and then they said, oh, you're not good enough defensively to be the catcher, and it's just moving to first base, and that can really mess with a guy's head. I mean, we saw what happened last year. Rafi Devers, the bad start that he got off to with the position change, and you're going to be third base. Now you're going to be DH. No, we want you to play first base. Contreras having a solidified role here, I think that is going to be huge for him, and I expect him to have a big bounce back year here. Wilyer Abreu, I'm a big fan of his. He had that huge home run in the WBC. I expect him to have a big year, and the bullpen led and anchored by Aroldis Chapman, who really had one of the best years out of any closer last year. If he can repeat that, that's a lockdown, slam the door. Good morning, good afternoon, good night guy that you can have in the ninth inning. And you go into the ninth inning with a lead. It's nice to have a guy like that. And if he can repeat that 1 year older, that's going to be big. So I'm big on this Red Sox team. I can't believe out of the three of us, I'm the only guy who has them winning the division, but I'm excited to watch this team play. I'm excited to see Roman Anthony and see what he does to take that next step, because I think he's going to be a superstar. I mean, he is already kind of a superstar, but I think he's going to show the rest of Major League Baseball, even the casuals, that are going to know this guy's name real quick. So really excited about this Red Sox team, and I think they're winning the AL East this year.
So there were a couple guys I wanted to highlight. Two of them you touched on, George, in Wilson Contreras. He's a guy that when we highlighted our, again, never wrong, just early, that's the Enter and Kenmore difference, we did our trade deadline primer, and I highlighted him as a potential trade target for the Red Sox. His air pull rate is just absolutely built to a T for Fenway Park. So I think he's going to hit 30-plus home runs for the first time in his career, playing half his games at Fenway Park. I think we're seeing Skinny Willier be a revelation, obviously, for Venezuela in the WBC. I think he should have won the MVP for Venezuela after they won the WBC title. But to me, I was going into this offseason, and you can go back to the video I posted on my Instagram after they lost to the Yankees in the wild card round, looking for one thing: certainty. And I just don't know that we got that necessarily. We obviously see the departure of Alex Bregman on top of the midseason trade that I'm not going to get into it. If you want to hear me get into it, you can listen to Enter and Kenmore. I do it every episode. The trade of Rafael Devers, which, again, trading your best player, I'm not going to get into it. But you needed to replace that production somewhere, and I just am not 100% sure that you did. I think Wilson Contreras and Caleb Durbin are going to more than replace the Bregman production at third base, but you're putting so much pressure on soon-to-be 22-year-old Roman Anthony to be Rafael Devers, who was a top 20 hitter in the sport for the better part of the last decade. I just don't understands that logic necessarily, on top of the fact that, like you said in the open, David, you're going with pitching and defense in the second most hitter-friendly park in baseball. And I got pushback when I posted a TikTok clip from Enter and Kenmore about this, where like, well, you only play half your games at Fenway Park. You know there are another 81 games there. But yeah, dude, you play half your games at Fenway Park. It's the most hitter-friendly park in baseball.
50% is a lot. Yeah.
Correct, bingo. You play more fact. You play more games at Fenway Park than you do any other stadium in the league. Fact. Like there's no denying that. So they didn't really address any of my concerns in the offseason. We looked for them to clear up this outfield logjam. They didn't do that. You still have way too many outfielders, including Masataka Yoshida, who is DH in outfielders' clothing, if you will, who has a completely underwater contract at this point. And not only that, you created another logjam in your rotation. You have, for the first time ever, the Boston Red Sox have been able to develop starting pitching, and that is a lot of credit to Kyle Bodie, to Andrew Bailey, Craig Breslow. His name's escaping me, but he's the new pitching coach for the Mets. He was also a driveline guy. He was with the Red Sox the last couple years. But that's a huge testament to them, and you finally have two guys that look like absolute studs in your minor league system. And what do? You go out and trade for Sonny Gray, and you go out and trade for Ranger Suarez. And I was number one guy beating the drum that they needed a number two behind Garrett Crochet, but I think Justin Willard is the guy I was thinking of. Sorry. But it kind of was overkill, which, like, I guess, like, if we're going to bitch about them not spending money, we can't then turn around and be like, why'd you spend money on this guy in Ranger Suarez? So I don't want to do that, but it's a guy I wasn't super thrilled about the signing. It's a pitcher over 30. He has never really truly been a workhorse guy, and he obviously has great success in the playoffs, but you got to get to the playoffs, and I just don't know that this offense is going to be good enough to get you to the playoffs. I mean, obviously, I do have them getting there. It's just, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see Jarren Duran return to 2024 form with the MVP. He finished top 10 in MVP voting, an potential 8-win player. We're going to see Wilyer Abreu face lefties for the first time in his career. And I know that Jeff Passan got dunked on that, Jeff Passan dunked on someone when he tweeted, don't test Wilyer Abreu with a fastball up in the zone when he hit that home run against Team Japan. And someone said, well, actually, that's his weakness, which it is. That was a 90-mile-an-hour fastball by some jag in the NPB. So I'm not ready to say that Wilyer's fastball woes are behind him, but I do think that if they can put it all together, that this team is going to be really, really successful. And you guys mentioned it, but last year they had the second lowest bullpen ERA in all of baseball, only behind the San Diego Padres. And you want to talk about a super pen, they have one in San Diego. So can you get bounce-back seasons from Aroldis Chapman? Garrett Whitlock obviously is a stud. I wouldn't dare slander Garrett Whitlock in front of David. I know that would not go over well. But can you get another good season out of Greg Weissert? Can Justin Slayton stay healthy for the duration of the season? And then from there, you're kind of just hoping to piece it together. If you kind of like what I said with the Yankees, where if you can get to the 8th inning, I think they're going to be in good shape. If you can get to the 7th inning for the Red Sox, or even the 6th inning with Greg Weissert, who pitched in some really high leverage spots for Team Italy and really shined through, I think they're going to be in good shape. So again, it's not the way that I would have built the Red Sox going pitching and defense. And again, I wouldn't have done a lot of the things that Craig Breslow did, starting with trading your best player because he hurt your feelings. But that's what they did, and that's what we're rolling with. And we're going to do a full season preview for the Red Sox tomorrow when we record. But it's a team that I think is going to get back to the playoffs, be one of the wild card teams, and we'll see where it goes from there. Obviously, pitching shines through in the playoffs, but you know what else shines through in the playoffs? Power. And Craig Breslow said it at one of his first press conferences of the offseason. The statistics show you have to hit home runs in the playoffs to be successful, and we didn't see the Red Sox hit a single one in their 3-game series against the Yankees last year, and now we're going into a year where, again, I think it's a bunch of hooey that they're not projected a single 20-plus home run hitter, and I think they're going to have 5 of them, but it's just when the pitching is at its best, can these guys hit for power? And they really just don't have that guy like Rafael Devers where you can write him in Sharpie for 30 home runs every year. So we'll see where the season goes. I have them being one of the wild card teams. I don't necessarily know that they're going to be good enough to take down the Blue Jays or the Mariners, but I'm sure when we record tomorrow, I'll have them winning the World Series. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the Red Sox. Like I said, more in depth tomorrow, but that's kind of just a broad overview of where I'm at.
Yeah, a couple more things I wanted to mention really quick here. They have the assets to go out and trade for a potential big bopper at the trade deadline, but we've seen in years past when Craig Breslow's at the helm during a trade deadline, he usually just sits on his hands. Exactly. So I wouldn't be too overly confident in that, but I also want to mention Tristan Casas, who hasn't been able to stay healthy the last 2 seasons, but when we saw him last, he was really solid. He had a slow start to 2025 and then blew out his leg. It was a pretty scary injury, so he's going to be slow to return. I imagine he starts the season in Worcester, and the main thing here for me is if Tristan Casas starts swinging it in Worcester, I don't think Masataka Yoshida is long for this team. If Tristan Casas is lighting the world on fire and you need more power in your lineup, then it's a pretty easy swap. Bring in Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida. I'm sorry to say you've overstayed your welcome. And it's just, the problem is if he were on any other team, I think he would be a quality major league hitter. But the problem is the Red Sox need power, and he's their designated hitter. And I don't know what the projection is. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But it can't be more than 15 homers he's expected to hit. It's just, I struggle to see how this lineup fits together. Maybe seeing them on opening day and in the future will help with that. But as of right now, I have them making the playoffs. I have them as a wild card team. But like you said, Zach, I just think they're still a step behind the Blue Jays and the Mariners, who I see as the real contenders in the American League this season.
Zips has Yoshida at 9 home runs projected.
So there you go.
I don't have too much more to say. Again, I'm excited for this team. I think they're going to be pretty good out there. I'm looking forward to watching them play. Always cool to see those games on at Fenway, and I'm hoping to get out there eventually because never been to Fenway. I've been to Wrigley 100 times and got to get out to Fenway. Just what a beautiful ballpark. One last final thing I will say. You guys are guaranteed to be better this year because Blake Sable is not on the not anywhere near the facility. So
thank God.
Yeah, he's long gone, and he's not going to be able to taint your clubhouse or anything like that. So that's already a bonus. And again, that I'm just fan of the young guys, fan of the rotation, and I'm a fan of the Red Sox this year.
Just a quick note on Blake Sable. Someone in and around in the media market, I'll say that, not to give too much away. I was with them during one of the few games of the Blake Sable era, a game in Chicago against the White Sox, a game that the Red Sox would go on to lose. Sable gets up with the bases loaded and hits a feeble little pop out. And this person turns to me and just goes, Sable is a piece of shit. Just completely, just came right at him. Not he sucks, he's a piece of shit. I was like, you know what? Yeah, fuck that guy. But yeah, just a quick aside on Blake Sable, which again, the Red Sox catching depth to get to that point where Blake Sable was playing on your major league team. That goes to show you where it was. And the White Sox are just running absolutely rampant on him in that game. If they tried to steal second base, it was an automatic bag. If a guy with any bit of speed got to first base, they might as well have just put him on second because it was an automatic steal. So that'll do it for the AL East. We can quickly run through our division standings. George, you want to kick things off?
Yep, I have the Red Sox winning, like I just mentioned. I have the Blue Jays coming in second as a wild card. I've got the Yankees coming in third. As a wild card. Baltimore in fourth, Tampa Bay in fifth. I do think Baltimore has a real shot to make the playoffs as a wild card. Tampa Bay, they also have a chance to make the playoffs. Not as good of a shot as Baltimore. I think it's kind of a long shot there, just because of the talent. It's not what it has been in the past, but yeah, that's how I've got this division playing out.
I'm going to go with the Blue Jays repeating as division champs. I have the Red Sox in second, and they will be a wild card team. I have the Yankees in third. It's probably going to be pretty close between the Jays, the Red Sox, and the Yankees. I have all three of these teams making the playoffs. The Orioles will be in fourth. I just think it's tough to have three wild card winners in the same division because obviously they're going to be beating up on each other pretty often. So I don't have the Orioles making the playoffs this season, and I have the Rays in last, also missing the playoffs.
So I've got the Blue Jays. I think I actually have it exactly the same as you, David. I've got the Blue Jays winning the division, the Red Sox in second, the Yankees in third, the Orioles in fourth, and then the Rays coming in a distant last place in the toughest division in baseball. I flirted with the idea of the Orioles making a playoff push, but ultimately I'm just not super comfortable with where the pitching staff is at, and like you said, having 4 out of the 5 teams make the playoffs in the division would be pretty tough when you are playing each other as often as you are. Obviously not as often as it once was. No, and I don't think it will, just because of how, 13 games against teams in your division, you'd really have to feast on these non-divisional opponents. But that'll do it for the AL East. That'll do it. We've somehow, someway made it through all 6 divisions in Major League Baseball. For this season preview, there is only one thing left to do, and that is make our season predictions, World Series, playoffs, and awards, and that'll be coming at you on Thursday morning ahead of opening day. Should be a quick little episode that we do. Looking forward to that one. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, be sure to follow us on all the socials. You can find our individual podcasts at entering Kenmore on Twitter and TikTok, and at RambleOnPod on Twitter and TikTok over there. You can find me at @co_Zach on Twitter, David at DAzer27, and George at GG Gabra, and be sure to follow George on TikTok. I saw he was breaking down some of the coaching carousel moves in college basketball today. That's at GGG Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you for the finale of this season preview tomorrow afternoon.